Hey, Rob with Shipa, and today we're going to be deploying your very first application from Shipa Cloud. If you don't have a Shipa Cloud account, you can come to shipa.io and click sign up, and then click login. Once you log in, you're going to be brought to the Shipa dashboard. The Shipa dashboard is the home from all your application information. Now today we're going to be taking a look at three separate concepts: frameworks, clusters, and applications. So the lifeblood of any Shipa application is a framework. And so the first thing we're going to do is actually add a framework to Shipa. By clicking on the plus icon here, we'll go ahead and create a particular framework. Now, there's a couple ways to create a framework. In the blog, we're actually going to be making a basic framework. And so go ahead and click next. Simply name this Vanilla Framework. Select a plan, which is the default plan that's created with Shipa Cloud. And go ahead and select a team, which will go ahead and select the default team, which is created with Shipa Cloud. Go ahead and click create, and the framework should be made. What's great about a Shipa framework is that it's actually a central home for all your particular policies. For example, in Shipa, by default, Shipa will scan your container images for security vulnerabilities. Now, given that most containers have vulnerabilities, we can actually go ahead and suppress that. Later on in this particular video, we'll be deploying WordPress, which clearly will have a vulnerability found. If you want to go ahead and update the framework to suppress that, go ahead and click update. If you come to the security scan step, we're going to go ahead and click disable app scans. Click next, go ahead and click update, and now our framework has been successfully updated. The next piece that we have to make actually is connecting to a cluster. And so I have an EKS cluster awaiting here that we can actually deploy to. Now, there's a few pieces that we need to connect to a cluster. If we take a look at the Shipa documentation, there's a trio of things that we need. First, we need a cluster endpoint or the Kubernetes API endpoint. Then we need an authentication token and then a CA cert. So let's go ahead and start getting those pieces together. So let's go ahead and click on clusters, and we're going to add a cluster, and I'm going to call this EKS cluster. And it's going to be applied to our vanilla framework. Go ahead and click next. And so here we have the three pieces of information. Well, the Kubernetes endpoint API is pretty easy to get if you're using Amazon EKS. So if you come over to EKS, go ahead and grab that endpoint, copy it. We're going to paste it into Shipa. To grab the other two pieces, the token and certificate, we can actually take a look at the documentation here. We actually need to deploy a admin service account to grab the particular authentication token. And then once we grab that, we can actually grab the CA. So I actually have the admin account actually deployed onto my Kubernetes cluster. So let me go ahead and run the two commands that's required to get those pieces of information. So the first one is to receive the token. Let's go ahead and just run that. Fire up terminal. And we're granted the token, so let's go ahead and copy and paste that in to the Shipa dashboard. The next step is actually to grab the particular certificate. So we can go ahead and grab the certificate, copy the command to the clipboard, and we'll run that here. Go ahead and grab the certificate, and we'll paste that in, and click next. And that should bring us to the ingress controller step. Now, for my default setup here, I'm not going to get into the ingress controller setup. By default, Trafic will be deployed for you. Go ahead and click create, and this will take a few moments, and it'll be created for us. After a few seconds, our cluster should be available for us to deploy on. So fantastic. The last step that we need to do is actually define an application. So let's go ahead and click on applications, and let's go ahead and build one. So click on create application. We're going to just call this WordPress. Going to select our framework, our vanilla framework, and our team, again, our Shipa team that's created for us by default in Shipa Cloud. Go ahead and click create. Take a few seconds to create. So here we have the WordPress application that's been created in the UI. Go ahead and click into it. And we're going to go ahead and deploy. Now we're going to deploy an image here. It's going to be from public registry and just docker.io/WordPress. Go ahead and click submit. And that's it. We can actually take a look at how the particular application is being deployed by this really nifty, I actually really like this view of this application dependency view. So it's going to take a few moments for the ingress controller to come up. And then we should have access to our particular WordPress installation. So it looks like it actually came up. So if we want to come back and take a look at the particular endpoint here, let's just go back and click on applications, click on WordPress. And this has always been a big challenge for me. Where exactly is my application being deployed? I'm never good at that. So if we go ahead and copy the endpoint, we can just fire up a new tab here. And hopefully this will bring us to a WordPress installation. And just like that, WordPress has come up. And now we're able to set up WordPress going on from here. Pretty straightforward getting signed up with Shipa Cloud and super easy to deploy an application. Coming back to the Shipa dashboard, we can actually see that we have one AWS application deployed. And if you're like me, this was quite easy and quite helpful. So until next time, cheers, Robbie.